Okay, let's take it away, Drew.
Okay, awesome. So everyone can hear me fine, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hey, firstly, thanks everyone for putting aside some time for your Friday night to come and listen to me, babble about stuff. My name is Drew. I made this game called Gloom and Doom over the course of last year, and it came out a little bit earlier this year, like at the end of January. Anyway, just as a bit of introduction, I came up with Neo Tigo Games, I think probably March last year, and started developing Gloom and Doom. At the same time, I was also doing this TV show called The Teenage Textbook, the series, where I was a creator and I wrote like 3 episodes of it. And yeah, this is week 2 as my new role as the digital marketing person over at RSG Esports. So if you guys need to look for me, please look up Neotigo Games on Twitter. That's where I'm probably most active these days. Or you can always just email me at neotigo@gmail.com. Okie dokie. I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about my messed up career path before I started doing game dev. I started out in magazines, actually, writing about like movies and video games. Then after that, I went into visual effects, where I was in the production team for like Transformers 3, and then I went over to join an animation studio where I was working on kids' cartoons, like Gone Over Here. And from there, I went over to marketing, where I was at Carousel doing SO and pimping luxury hotels for really rich people in Como. Then after that, in 2020, I decided to take a break and I went on to do the game dev and the TV stuff. I wanted to share this little bit of my career just in case anyone out there was at a place like I was, where I was like, oh, maybe it's like way too late in my career to think about like, doing some game dev, or oh man, I'm already 22 years old. I'm past my prime. I can't be a game dev anymore. I think that is really, no, I honestly feel that, you can go into it anytime as long as you have the kind of drive and desire to do so. And I think this will be a recurring thing. I'm going to be saying, yeah, yeah, I'm actually like 40 plus, so okay. But yeah, I hear all these like 20-year-olds going, "Oh man, I'm so old already," and it's like, please just relish your youth. Anyway, so yeah, the whole go and be a game dev thing, is going to be a recurring theme through this whole talk. All right. And plus, I have a family. I've pretty much heard before that this thing where someone said, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to do passion projects, don't get married, don't have kids. And yeah, you know this is too late for me, but somehow I got through that. So, and if I did, I'm pretty sure you can too. Okay, so 10 things we're gonna talk about tonight. Just gonna give a quick intro to what Gloom and Doom is, and two, why it gave me a sense of purpose when I was making this game. I'll share some of the original inspirations I had for like the story and the game. I want to go a little bit into developing the game with marketing plan in mind and building a story purpose. I want to share some things about how, I mean, Gloom Doom's a visual novel, so I really wanted to maximize that particular genre and all those kind of mechanics to serve the purpose of this game. And again, developing characters that serve that purpose too, and other benefits of purpose, and random trivia, and hopefully there'll still be enough time to answer some questions. Okie dokie. This is one of my favorite characters in the game. He's a skateboarding angel, and he wears globe shoes. So, what's Gloom and Doom? Gloom and Doom is my love letter to 90s slacker movies. Okay, so I already said I'm 40 years old. That means that, my teenage years were in the 90s, and I loved the movies then. I loved the pop culture then. So I grew up on movies like Clerks and She's All That, and I mean Breakfast Club's technically an '80s movie, but it's it's still being watched in the 90s, and Reality Bites, all those movies. So I want to do something like that, except with supernatural characters. Well, as you can see, one of them is a floating skull with green smoke, and I decided to make it as a visual novel, minus their sex scenes that are predominant in this genre. I developed it using RenPy. I drew most everything in Photoshop, and some cutscenes were animated with After Effects. Um, I mean, I use RenPy, but I mean, originally I tried using Visual Novel Maker. I just thought that, you know, RenPy gave me a lot more leeway to do a lot of different things. Gloom Doom will probably occupy you for about 2 to 5 hours. At least that's what it seems like from how much time people spend on it in Steam. There are 7 different endings for you, and it's currently available on PC. And later this year, it will be on mobile platforms and on all the major consoles. Oh yeah, please look for it on Steam, wishlist it. Even if you have no intention to buy it, please just wishlist it. Thank you. Okay, so this is the part where I'm just going to go into the trailer, and apparently it's going to be really, 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 really soft. So if I promise not to say anything, you can turn up your volume a bit. Okay, at the end of the trailer, then I will stop talking about. Oh, I'll start speaking again.
Out a secret skateboarding angel. Defeat some demon assassins. And help people find movies. But will you choose to save the world? Or will you choose to save her soul? The good, the bad, and the indifferent. Gloom Doom. Available January 2021. Okay, I'm gonna start speaking again, so you may want to lower your volumes back to normal. All right, so that was the trailer. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, so last year I technically did 2 things, and this year both of them came out within a month of each other. And a lot of people will kind of go, and tell me, "Oh my God, you made a TV show. You should be like super, super, super proud of that." And but to be honest, I'm a lot more proud of what I did with Gloom and Doom. Yes, yes, it's a little game. It's not like on national TV or anything, but I I feel prouder of it anyway. Why? Because to me, Gloom and Doom managed to fulfill its purpose, and that's a big deal for me. So, what exactly is purpose? So, to me, purpose is the reason for which something is done or created. Okay, and in this sense, it gives you a sense of direction. It helps you define goals, and once you have those goals in mind, it helps you make a lot of decisions. And when you're making a game or making any kind of creative project, you're gonna be faced with a crap ton of creative decisions. And to me, having a clear sense of purpose will help you navigate that. Okay, this is something. Okay, why purpose is kind of important as well. Okay, once upon a time, I just thought of myself as a gamer. So everything that validated me was based around gaming. That means 100% in getting all the achievements on Arkham Asylum and getting that perfect combo. Was it? Yeah, unlocking that perfect combo achievement in Batman. Um, all of that kind of really mattered to me, and if I couldn't do all that kind of stuff, I wouldn't feel good about myself. Of course, that all changed when the kids were born,
And there was one, I remember really clearly, there was one night after one, my second kid, after my second kid was born, and I'm playing The Last of Us. Okay, and this is not the photo because I'm obviously playing Halo in this picture, but like, I was playing The Last of Us, and I was kind of stuck at this stage where I could not get past this. I don't know. I can't remember. It was like an underground subway or something, and there were like clickers all over the place. And I just knew that I didn't really have much time to play it because at any given time my infant kid's going to start crying, and I'm going to have to go tend to him. So for the first time in my life, I dumbed the difficulty down to easy. Okay, and it wasn't an easy decision for me because I had so much pride behind being a gamer, and despite the fact it's an offline game, no one's actually here looking at me do it, but it felt dirty and it felt embarrassing. But like dumbing it down to easy made me sort of like think about how I self-identify myself. And it was then that I kind of realized, I'm not going to self-identify myself as a gamer anymore. I'm going to self-identify myself as a parent. And all my decisions, everything I do is going to be based around being a good parent. So once I kind of came to that realization, everything just sort of made things clearer. I could now, I no longer have to, even if I don't have to dumb a game down to easy, I don't have to get all the achievements anymore. I can just play a game and just complete it, get the story, and I'll be happy with that because my prime directive in life is no longer to own at games. My prime directive is to be good to my kids, and that includes career choices, and or just like any kind of lifestyle choices. So to me, that sense of self-identity defines your purpose, and likewise, and therefore your sense of validation that comes with that. So, and I've always wanted to make a game ever since I was a kid. The purpose of Gloom Doom, okay, my original purpose of Gloom Doom was to make a game. Because once upon a few years back, I was on this other indie team project developing a horror game, but that totally fell apart because it was just too ambitious and it really lacked a lot of project planning. So when I first decided to do Gloom Doom, my top priority to myself is like, make and release a game. No matter what, you have to release it and not let it die out. And I decided I can do that by doing it myself and keeping completely within my skill set. Okay, so why I decided to make a visual novel? Okay, I can write. My background is journalism and marketing and all that. I did a lot of writing. I can somewhat draw, just something I picked up along the way. I know that I don't have time to pursue a long-term hobby. My original plan was to take half a year off, like full-time work, to do the TV show, and in the meantime also work on, on the game. But and I knew that I'm probably going to have to, my savings will not last forever, and I have to go back to work at some point. So time was not on my side. Then I played this game called Doki Doki Literature Club. I loved it, and once I realized that it was mostly done by one person, so I told myself, okay, I can probably do this. I can try. If I keep to this genre, I can probably do it. So then, next question is, what kind of story do I want to do? And okay, this started 18 years ago when I watched Ju-on. And I don't know if you guys remember that movie, but it was like this Japanese horror flick about like this haunted house with like this creepy boy and his long-haired Asian mother that crawls at you and goes, ah. Anyway, I'm not exactly a big horror fan, and I was so shit scared that I watched this at the cinema because a friend of mine dragged me to it. And I legit, okay, I'm not gonna lie, this is embarrassing, but I watched it with my hands over my eyes with just a little bit of gap between my pinky and my ring finger so I can read the subtitles. But anyway, I was really, this movie really bugged me out. But one thing it did stick into me was that I thought it was actually as scary as the movie was. It might be even scarier to be the ghost. What if you were the ghost and you're just stuck in this dead loop forever? Like all you ever do is hang out in this haunted house, and basically you kill people that come. And in between, what do? Like apparently, what's a kid do? He goes around going meow under the table. You can't come out, right? So I took this concept of being the ghost being scarier, and I started mixing in my own feelings of being lost, because I was in uni at the time, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was studying a useless degree called fine arts, but I really wasn't sure where I was going. And I had some friends that were in these like completely toxic relationships, but they couldn't bring themselves to leave it. They were just sort of stuck in it, And I had this friend who was just in the worst crappy job, but he just sort of like, again, he was stuck in it. He forced himself to deal with it. So basically, on top of the whole ghost stuff, I added this whole feeling of wanting more in life and not knowing how or what to do to achieve it. And between Ju-on and this, feeling of being stuck and wanting more, that's how I came up with Gloom, this wraith who was stuck in eternal unlife. This is not what Gloom looks like, but this is what Gloom looked like when I first drew him 18 years ago. Okay, so now I've got this concept of this cool, wraith guy who, can't die and is feeling stuck. But it wasn't exactly a story yet, like Aristotle likes to say, every story has three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay. So I knew what happens, and I knew the concept, the very beginning of it. But what actually happens and what happens at the end, what kind of resolution there was, I could not figure that out. And so it was just a cool concept for most of its existence, until 8 years ago when something really, really big happened in my life. So 8 years ago, my daughter was born, and remember what I was saying before about self-identity changing after having kids? Well, that's exactly what happened. I developed this sense of protectiveness and purpose, around my daughter, and that's what led to the creation of Winona, which is the missing piece in my story. This is Winona right here, but Winona is an angry teenager. So, yeah, it's true. Winona wasn't a foil. She started out as a foil, I guess. But over time, when I developed the story, she became a whole lot more than that. Okay, so Winona is a young girl who is destined to become the Doombringer. Okay, and the Doombringer means she's going to destroy the world. And Winona actually isn't an evil person. So to responsibly try to prevent that, she tries to stop it. And the only way she can figure out how is to try to kill herself. So now suicide has become a major theme in this story. Okay, and I wanted to tackle suicide realistically and responsibly, so I started doing a crap ton of research in Reddit. I hung out a lot on the depression and suicide and all those other kind of really dark subreddits, and I read a lot of stories and a lot of kind of confessions and and the things that these threads that these really, really depressed people write. And I read thoughts of people who just constantly wanted to die. And, and I wanted to capture that, but it also made me kind of realize I need to be really tactful about this. I started speaking to a psychiatrist over Twitter, and he was he used to handle suicide cases when he worked in the A&E. There's this guy who actually he's based in the UK. He gave me a lot of help talking, about like what suicidal people are actually like, and and how they're all kind of different. And I had him, sort of play an early copy of the game, and he had a hand in the development of the story, honestly. On top of the psychiatrist, I also had a friend who was a child psychologist. So I started speaking to her a lot as well. And from her, she kind of, she guided me towards developing more positive messages, you know. So as in, I wanted to just reach people. I just wanted to connect to people. Okay. But now, after all this, I kind of realized I wanted to do more than just like make a game to reach them. I wanted to reach them, reach these people who were, feeling all isolated and in pain. And definitely, especially, last year when everyone's all locked down, the sense of isolation in 2020 was like just like off the charts. But like after all this, I wanted to encourage these people. After I reached them, I wanted to encourage them to just keep on trying, to just not give up and just survive every day, one step at a time, one day at a time. I really just wanted this game to become more than just a cool story about a wraith and a antichrist girl. So this is what I wanted to kind of this is the purpose of this game, to kind of let people know that it's not useless. You just haven't found your purpose yet, and things will get better. Okay, look, honestly speaking, that's kind of, I mean, that sounds a bit like it's yeah, I admit it's borderline pretentious. Okay, and I'm not saying that you have to have any real meaning in your game. It could just be purely an entertaining experience, like a Flappy Bird or something. Like, I mean, you look at these two examples of like of music. I would say for me, I wanted to do something a bit more like Robert Smith The Cure stuff, and I wanted to like write I mean, I can't write good lyrics or anything, but I can at least try to write a good game story. So if I had the chance, I want to say something, and I want to have someone really connect with me on a deeper level. If I get a chance to do that, I'm going to gun for it. So the question I'm going to pose to you guys is just ask yourself, what kind of story do you want to tell? Okay. If it's something kind of like, special and unique from you, honestly speaking, I would want to hear it. Okay. So folks, I mean, honestly, I have been a movie and a game reviewer for over a decade now. Okay. And I've seen a lot of stories, but I assure you that I have not seen yours. Okay. So if you tell your story, and it can be really sloppy, it doesn't have to be slick and polished and all that. But if you tell your story that's true to you, it will be good, as long as you just keep it authentic and real. Okay, I guarantee you that. So, depression and suicide are not exactly fun themes, So to successfully deliver this message, I kind of need to set it up nicely. Okay, and it was only after I tried to create my Steam page that I kind of figured this out. And I think he's listening there. Props to Brian, because like you were totally really helpful with this. Okay, so this is the kind of stuff you got to think about when you're writing a Steam page. What is the draw of your game? Okay, what is going to get people to stop scrolling Steam once they see your game? So to do this, I highly recommend you either write your Steam page for it, or you could also write your GDD pitch, what's a game design document. Okay, so how I started doing this was, it's like a burger. Okay, so the top layer of the burger is the jokes and pop culture references. So when you go to my Steam page, Gloom Doom Steam page, you're going to see that it's really going to hit you with the, it's like, slacker stuff. It's funny. It's a lot of jokes, a lot of 90s references, So people are going to be attracted by that, and they're going to take a bite in. Then after that, layer 2, they'll realize, there are a lot of quirky and lovable characters in this story. Okay. And once they bite further into that, they're going to get into the juicy meat in the middle, which are the thought-provoking situations. Okay, and these are the ones that are going to get players thinking about the true message, and hopefully it is also this message and this purpose of the game that's going to keep them satisfied long after they've devoured this burger. Okay, now if I didn't do it this way, okay, if I decided to just jump straight into layer 3, it is just simply not freaking appealing. Okay, a meat patty on its own is kind of gross looking, and no one's going to pick it up. Well, maybe, but I am not that good a storyteller. If I just kind of jump straight in and say, hey, I've got this story about suicide and teen suicide, isn't that like is that fun? Buy my game about teen suicide. I'm not good enough to market that and get people to pick it up. So now, okay, I mean, it's a burger analogy time, but burger metaphor time, but building a story with the right ingredients. Okay, so I know I need 2 key ingredients here. I need to start with really hopeless situations to sell that whole being stuck in life sort of thing, and once I've really got this whole hopeless situations thing in place, I know it's got to get to a point where the characters find meaning in life, and then and give them an ending that gives them hope, for finding meaning. So I've got these ingredients, and okay, do you guys? Do you guys know about this thing called like the hero's journey? They talk about it in screenwriting all the time, or in movies and all that. But anyway, this is your. Yeah, Brian. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I just reconnected separately. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go on.
Okay, and I'm always happy to have you interrupt. Okay. Anyway, this is your most standard form of the 3-act structure. Okay, the full hero's journey actually is longer, but this is the more Hollywood version. Okay, where Act 1 is Act 1 is called the ordinary world, and that's where you set up your characters in their the de facto state of life, and something happens with the call to adventure. That's also called plot point 1. And then Act 2 is the initiation, and that's when they go and and try whatever it is that they need to do. They go and try to do it. And then comes plot point 2, which is known as the moment of despair, where something really bad happens. Okay, you'll recognize it, as usually as someone's mentor dies, a la Obi-Wan, or like the two people that you think are going to end up together. There's a sudden disagreement and they kind of break up. Like that part in Notting Hill where Hugh Grant overhears Julia Roberts, talking shit about him, even though she didn't really mean it, but it was so heartbreaking at the time, and I really felt bad for him, and I really wanted to cry too. I say really wanted to cry as if I didn't, but you know what? It's true, I did. Anyway, but that plot point 2 leads to Act 3, which is the resolution. Okay. Most new writers tend to misunderstand how the 3-act structure works. And I say this because I misunderstood the 3-act structure for most of my life as well, most of my writing life. They tend to think of Act 1 as just introduce characters, Act 2 as go and do things, and Act 3 as, and then people live happily ever after. Okay, so how I want to challenge you to sort of like, really structure your story with purpose is, how do you want your player to feel at each of these acts? Okay, like for me, this is how I kind of wanted to. I wanted my Act 1 to get people to feel sad for the characters. So everything, all the scenes in the first act are all kind of set up to make the characters really sympathetic. I just wanted the player to kind of go, wow, they have a shit life. That's the only reaction I wanted, from the player. And in Act 2, that's when, actually for Act 1, it's strange for some people said it was strange, but like Gloom and Doom, so Gloom and Winona, don't actually meet each other until really until a really long time in the game, you know. So I did that intentionally because I wanted each of them to be sympathetic in their own right. And it was only after plot point one. Plot point one is actually when they first meet, and it's only in Act 2 that they start hanging out together, and which is the whole point of Act 2. Because what I wanted from Act 2 is I wanted the player to kind of say, "Oh, I like these two together. They kind of, you know, they belong together. They really, what's the word? They complement each other, you know." And in case you guys don't know, I mean, I mean this in a totally non-romantic sort of way, okay? Because the guy is like 500 years old plus, and she's like, a teenager. So that's, this isn't one of those Twilight sort of situations. Then Act 3 is when, Act 3 is when I introduce Gloom's wife. And then after you like them together, Gloom suddenly has a really, really, really good reason to kill Winona once again. And that's what I want the player to feel and to think in Act 3 is, oh my God, I really hope that Gloom and Winona stay together. I really hope he doesn't kill her. Okay. So that is how I structured Gloom and Doom. And here's Lucia reminding you, okay? It's not just what you want to say. It's what they want to hear, okay? And having come from marketing, okay, because I have a bit of a marketing background, as you may recall, and it's something stakeholders just tend to not remember. They always be like, oh, my product is amazing. Can you say this? Can you say this? Can you say that? Unique selling point 1, 2, 3, And we always have to remind them, it's not just what you want to boast about your product. Okay, it's what your consumer wants to hear, what's relevant to them. So you gotta, before you can get their attention, you gotta make sure you're relevant first. Okay, now this is the customer journey. Okay, how should I go about this? Okay, the customer journey is a lot like the hero's journey in essence. Okay, the hero's journey works only if you go from Act 1 to get the people to like the characters, Act 2 to show that the characters are trying their hardest to achieve what they need to achieve, and then finally, meeting their resolution in Act 3. If you were to, jumble that around and try to push the big touching scene in Act 3 and push it forward, it doesn't work because they haven't, gotten the chance to get to know the characters yet. All right. So likewise, same with the customer journey. Okay, the customer journey has to go in this order, where you attract their attention first and show the relevance of what you're trying to sell. And there's an optional step where you kind of create a sense of urgency. And finally, they convert. When you convert this, when you look at this from the player standpoint, okay, the consumer standpoint, I should say, because this is a marketing thing. They're not actually playing the game. This is you wanting them to buy the game, right? So the very first step, okay, they will be asking, why should I care? And once they kind of care a bit more, then they'll ask, what else you got? Okay, and then what's at stake is that's like if you pre-order now, you're gonna get all this DLC for free. Or if you pre-order now, you get a 15% discount. Or if you pre-order now, you're going to get an extra skin for your character. Okay, before finally you reach the final point, which is like, hey, where's my wallet? I bring this up because I think purposeful marketing is something that a lot of indie game devs just haven't kind of figured out. And I say this because, okay, the first step, all right, tends to be the first time a new user, a new buyer, new gamer is going to come across your game is probably on maybe on like a Reddit thread or a Facebook, not your Facebook page, but a Facebook post or someone or like maybe a YouTube video or something. Okay, and this is their first point of contact with your game. And I've seen some people use this first point of contact, okay, put content like, let's say from a visual novels, position, they'll say, oh, this character is Mindy, and she loves strawberry milk, and she has to just, and she kind of really likes going on long walks. Would you like to know her? Get to know her. And it's like, it's kind of like, at this point, people don't really know who Mindy is, or don't really care who Mindy is, and they just want to know. Well, you kind of need something a bit more to get them into the game. It's honestly, okay, here, okay. Let's take Mortal Kombat, for example, a game that's near and dear to my heart. Okay, it's like the first, it's like as if like the first ad that someone sees of Mortal Kombat is like, this is Princess Katana. She's got daddy issues, and her mom's like kind of crazy, and she's got, and she likes to, fan herself. That's not gonna grip someone and get someone to really care about Mortal Kombat. The first step of Mortal Kombat has got to be violence. It's a fighting game with so much violence. It's awesome. Look at these, cutting edge, like digitized graphics from like still photos. That's gonna make someone care. Then once they care and they kind of, go to your Steam page or your website, or, start following your Instagram, that's when you can start, going in with like the, here's some, some more interesting facts about Princess Katana and Liu Kang and Scorpion, and then once they're there, that's when you can set up like, the urgency to say like, hey, wishlist my game, or etc. And then finally, you get your content ready when they're ready to convert, which is like essentially just having the appropriate links to wherever like stores that you're set up. Okay, so what I so to summarize this, think about when you're writing content and trying to market your game, think about what step your consumer is at, okay, and what they really want to see at that point, and give that to them, nothing else. Okay, so I'm making a visual novel, all right, visual novels are essentially just, a lot of reading and a lot of choices to make. Okay, so what I wanted to do with the visual novel, since I'm making a visual novel, I wanted to emphasize the choice mechanic. I wanted to paint a reality where choices don't matter, and I wanted to force someone to face the same choices over and over again. I wanted to create this idea of delayed gratification and forced reflection. I'm going to get into these, deeper here. Okay, so to emphasize the choice-making mechanic in Gloom and Doom, I did something which apparently hasn't been done in a visual novel before. I made a prologue that is basically a giant tutorial, and I made a big joke out of it. Okay, so the prologue opens with this guy and this girl going into a haunted house because they're drunk, horny teenagers. Okay, and it's in this scene that Sophie here starts teaching Roger about the game mechanics, but as part of this whole story of like them being all DTF and stuff. So everything about like he's, because I think the first thing he starts off with like, oh, this is like one of those like Japanese romance simulator games where you use your left mouse button to click to or sometimes when I get tired and have to switch hands, I can use the space bar to progress as well. I mean, it's just teaching the player all these mechanics just in case they don't know. Okay, and for me, I wanted to target this game to not just visual novel fans, but like regular casual gamers as well. So I just in case they don't know how these games are played, I wanted to make it very damn sure that they know. Okay, so, and it breaks the fourth wall a lot, and but people find it hilarious. Things that I wanted to teach, definitely how to click, how to when it comes to making choices, and how to save the game before making choices. Okay, just in case someone didn't know, I wanted the players, all of them, from the VN fans to like the new casual gamers, I wanted them all to understand all of these mechanics because I wanted to feel empowered to try different choices and experience all the different bits of the game. Okay, it's like in Batman, and in Batman you're like if you're running around in high places with like ledges and all that, you feel really nervous, because like, oh my god, what if I fall? But once you learn that Batman can cape glide around and he can fire his bat hook and climb really quickly, then you're no longer so afraid of heights anymore, and you feel like you're empowered to go and explore high places, explore difficult to reach places. Okay. And that's what I wanted to do with this particular prologue. I set this prologue up just so later on in the game, when it comes to choices and all that, the players will know that they can try different choices. If they don't like it, they can mouse scroll up and go backwards and try again. And one very, very important thing that Sophie says in the prologue is she seeds this idea that choices might not appear to matter now, but they will have implications later. Okay? I mean, this is a concept I found working in a regressive company. Like, no matter what I did or how well my team performed, nothing changes, So likewise, this prologue actually has quite a fair bit of choices in this prologue. I think it has one of the most amount of choices within a single scene of the entire game. Okay, but no matter what you do in the prologue, no matter which choices you make, it will end exactly the same way every single time. Okay, however, in the very next scene, okay, so if you, in this particular scene, in the prologue, if Roger decides to hide behind a couch in one scene, on one of the choices, in the next scene, a character will find Roger's wallet in the couch. Okay, this was designed to hint to the player that the game is remembering your old choices. All right, because this is exactly what's happening under the hood. This mechanic is happening under the hood. Okay. When you get to the end of the game, when you get to the middle of Act 3, okay, you'll find a lot of choices that you have made during the game will influence a hidden score that determines which set of endings you will be able to reach once you get to that point. Okay, to me it was a very important point to make, because I wanted the players to know that even if it doesn't feel like it right now, the choices they're making is going to matter later. And just in case they didn't get it the first time, I had Sophie spell it out again in the end credits, so that for subsequent playthroughs they can do things differently. Okay, repetitive choices. So have you guys ever felt like your life is the same set of choices day after day, weekend after weekend? That's something I really wanted to portray, okay? Because Gloom is he's like centuries old and he doesn't do anything different. So I set up these this scene here, what you're seeing, this set of choices, I set it up so that Gloom is faced with this exact same set of choices twice. Okay. Actually, in the first version of the game, you actually see the set of choices 3 times, but like, I cut the third one. A friend of mine, an early playtester, actually asked me like, "Hey, what the fuck's going on, man? Like, why are you doing this? And did you make a mistake somewhere? Did you accidentally copy and paste one whole scene?" So I'm like, no, actually, I just wanted the player to really understand what it's like to be an immortal wraith who cannot sleep and has limited ways to pass the time. I really wanted to drive that whole depressing, oh my god, life is just boring and meaningless and repetitive. I really wanted to drive that through. And obviously this happens in the first act, because what's the first act meant to do? It's meant to create sympathy. And so an important theme in a game is that your choices do matter, even if they don't make a difference right now. Okay, I really, really believe this. All right, because I believe this is what real life is like. So to highlight this and to illustrate this particular concept, I most of the time in my game, things will happen only after, you know, like a scene or a couple of scenes down. This particular example, here you have the Mistress of Suffering, okay, and Gloom has the option to kill her or spare her. And if you choose to spare her, she will actually reappear in a later scene, and she will beg you to put her out of her misery. Okay, but this concept of delayed gratification, my favorite example of it is a particular character called the anxious customer. And the first time you meet her, you're Winona and you're working at the video store, and you know, she's gonna come in and she's gonna be one of those annoying, annoying last minute customers, and all you want to do is just close up the shop and go home for the night. But like, here's some person, and she's just like, can't make up her mind what she wants to rent. You can be really rude to her, and or you can be nice to her. And at one point, she's like, oh, I really want a really good movie for my brother, but I don't know what he'll like, and and she chooses this really shitty movie, and you have the option to let her choose the shitty movie or help her find a much better one. Okay. And this will just kind of happen, and you think that nothing, it's not a big deal, because actually in an earlier scene you deal with another customer that's called the asshole customer, annoying customer, sorry, and nothing happens from that. So I set it up so that the player thinks, oh, here's another annoying customer, and nothing's going to happen from this. But later on, you're going to find out that anxious customer actually has her brother has is dying of cancer, so, and he's probably going to have one more birthday movie left to watch or something. And so that's going to make her, you'll see the concept, it's the delayed gratification. If you were nice to her before and you got nothing out of it, it's only in later on that you realize, oh, I did something good. And actually, I bring back the anxious customer several times during the game. So you can actually, her brother eventually dies, and she's actually contemplating suicide, and you have the option to save her. And if you save her, actually, a lot of funny things happen if you don't save her. You can actually, Gloom, as one of the options, Gloom can actually just knock her off the roof himself. And then later on, he says some really, cheesy Arnold Schwarzenegger style, catchphrase thing. Complete with like a badoomts, But if you save her, then towards the end of the game, she's actually the one person who will come and help you adopt your dog later. Okay, so I really like this particular story arc because it really sells the whole idea of delayed gratification. Oh crap! Yeah. So this is the the anxious customer. So there is another kind of choice. There's another kind of choice mechanic that I put into it, where I call it the reflection choices. So there are a couple of choices in the game that don't actually affect the story much. Okay, but I put these in because I feel that they encourage a player to take a break and think about it for themselves. Okay, like this particular choice here, where Gloom asks, like, do you know what's the most important kind of love? It really doesn't matter what Winona responds. It all leads to the same thing. But I feel like by making the player consider this choice, it will sort of like force them to take a moment to think about it, and hopefully in thinking about it, they'll come up with some kind of ideas about it, or something will make sense to them. And so, it's just a reason. I mean, I feel a lot of these are ideas and concepts that people don't really, think about, because like real life has more pressing matters and, more attractive options like Netflix or Disney Plus and The Mandalorian. But like, so by putting this into the game, I'm just like trying to carve out like at least like 30 seconds for people to think about them. These particular choices appear very late in the game, because the player should already be emotionally invested in the characters and their stories at that point. So they hopefully, the questions will make sense to the player. If I put them up, I feel like if I put them up front and the players are not invested in the characters or the story yet, these will kind of fall flat. And when it comes to creating characters with a purpose, okay, if you read my early screenplays, like honestly, when I was a teenager, the ones I wrote, well, they're filled with a lot of characters that are just simply based on friends of mine. It's quite simple as that. And basing characters on people is not exactly a bad thing, but it gets really boring if you're not in that circle of friends, or if your name isn't Mary Sue. So these days I've kind of I have a different philosophy about it now, and I find it more effective to create only characters that will serve the story in some way. So Gloom, okay, what's he represent? All right, Gloom is an ancient lonely ghost who feels stuck. Okay, I don't know any ghosts. I'm not Jennifer Love Hewitt. I don't whisper to her. So I can't base Gloom on anyone I know in that undead sort of manner. Okay. But on an emotional level, I do know a lot of people like that. That friend of mine who was stuck in a toxic relationship, was too afraid to break it off. I can use a bit of, his situation. I can use some of the lines that he's told, some of the things that he's told me before. The friend in a dead end job that was but it was too comfortable, too easy, for him to leave. I could use some of that. And I definitely used a lot of my own feelings of being lost in uni, and not knowing what to do. All of this fed into Gloom's character. And although this hideous glowing skull thing of no legs, I think what I've noticed is everyone who's played the game has said that they like him a lot. Okay. Because despite being this supernatural thing, Gloom feels real to people and relatable. And I think that's only because I've emotionally grounded him by a lot of real life influences. Okay. Okay. Here's the thing. Okay. Just imagine you've got like this friend named Chris. Okay. He works in digital marketing. And on weekends, he plays golf with these golf buddies who brag about sleazy karaoke bars and they cheat on their wives. Okay, Chris is not like that, and he's really grossed out by that. But he's really got no choice but to play along, or he'll risk losing his golf buddies. Okay, now you can use your friend Chris to inspire, a digital marketing character, but that's just kind of just straightforward and possibly a little bit boring. Okay, so instead, what you can do with Chris is you can make him a disgruntled space marine, a space marine who really goes around burning things in the name of the emperor, and but he feels really out of place because all his squad mates are like these religious zealots, but Chris himself doesn't really feel the same way. He doesn't really love the emperor in the same way, but he's got no choice but to play along because he doesn't want to lose his friends. So that if you're making a Space Marine character, you can use Chris. Use emotions. Okay, I really use your characters to represent emotions, and if you look around you, there are plenty. Okay, there are plenty of situations around you. All you have to do is distill them to a emotional truthness, or Okay, Larael. Why does Larael exist? Okay, honestly speaking, while most of my characters had detailed bios and profiles and all that kind of shit when I started writing the game, Larael did not. Okay, she was the one character where really the only note I had for her was her name is Larael, and I wanted that for a shampoo related punchline, and the fact that my Star Wars Galaxies character way back was named Larael. So but I knew, although I didn't know who she was, I knew what part she had to play in the story. Okay, I knew I needed someone to represent the angels that resent gloom. I knew I needed someone to help inspire Winona to keep fighting against fate, to get her to not want to kill herself. And based on these two plot devices, I figured that, you know what, Larael would be the new angel of justice, replacing Gloom. Gloom used to be the old angel. He was the old angel of justice. Okay, so by being the new one, that gives them immediate resentment towards one another. And since I needed her to inspire Winona, I knew I had to write a backstory for her that's inspirational. So I wrote that Winona had to, in order to become the Angel of Justice, she had to fight hard against a patriarchal management in order to earn her place. Okay, which with this kind of backstory, that kind of helped define her character, which is strong, stubborn, and kind of cocky. So while sometimes you create characters to represent something, sometimes like in the case of Larael, you can just write characters to fill in the blanks you need filled in. So what else does a sense of purpose do for you? Okay, so after I released the game in January, it's not like I sold Minecraft amount of copies or anything. So sorry guys, if if you're hoping for some sort of big win, it's not a Cinderella story here. I didn't get like super rich or anything from Gloom Doom. Okay, admittedly, it was really disappointing for me that I didn't make a lot of bank, but that wasn't the purpose of the game, was it? If I wanted to, my purpose was I wanted to make a game that reached people, and I wanted to. Sorry, let me. I wanted to reach people. I wanted to, connect with them on an emotional level, and I wanted them to feel better about themselves. This was my sort of like more than just me, the greater good sort of like purpose. And it was because of this purpose that I just kept going making this game. It okay, no, not gonna lie here, folks. All right, making a game solo is a very, very lonely experience. Okay, you're just gonna be doing this stuff, and no one's gonna. A lot of times, no one's gonna really understand what you're doing, and it feels like no one cares, But like this sense of purpose kept me going. Okay, and this sense of purpose also for me, made it so that I knew what kind of goals I was gunning for, which was to reach someone and do all that. Okay, if I didn't want to do this, in hindsight, if I wanted to make money instead, I would have done a completely different game. If it was all about money, I would have Gloom be like this like guy going around porking anime angels and succubi left, right, center. That's the kind of game. Well, that's what it seems like. That's the kind of game that apparently sells a lot. Okay, so, but no, the really real reward here. Okay, and it wasn't money. Okay, and trust me, I've been working for 41 years now. Okay, you're gonna have plenty of chances to make money, and there are gonna be lots of different ways to make money. Okay, but for me, all right, it's all about wanting to be represented and remembered. Okay, it's all about, if you have a chance to make an indie game, please make it personal, make it your own story, and make it so that you can make a connection with someone.
Sorry, Drew, just a time check to make sure, Do you have a lot more ground to cover, or in terms of the overall pitch presentation?
I'm getting to the end. I'm probably gonna another 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
I'll be super fast. Okay.
I mean, I'll let you exercise best judgment, but yeah, we just a reminder, we don't want to keep everyone here too late.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me tell you. Okay, this was super fast. Okay. I was walking to buy some dinner for my family. Okay, this is when I was like super exhausted from working on the game. I was like, emailing a lot of people. No one's getting back to me. I had no faith that I was doing anything. I was doing any good at all. Okay, and I got this message that my first preview went up on Hardware Zone. Okay, I didn't know what to expect, and I started reading it, and it was good, and it was really good. I felt like this guy really understood me. This Tim Augustine really understood me. And honestly, right there on the street, when I was walking to buy dinner, I broke down and cried. Okay, because it was like after being so exhausted, I finally felt like I was validated. I felt like someone understood what I was making. Okay, this is my reward for making this game, I'd say. Okay, and also that kind of feedback. And I saw a lot of people that kind of really understood what I was trying to do with this game. Couple of streamers, they were, honestly, the first couple of streamers that were playing it, one of, they were LGBTQ, so they understood the isolation stuff. And one of them was even a suicide survivor. I thought, oh my God, they're going to hate this game. They're going to think I'm exploiting them. But apparently they loved it. We're Twitter friends now. Because of that whole crying thing I did, when I got that first preview, I put this crying scene in the game and I made it really ugly crying. Okay. So I don't know what your purpose is, guys. I don't know what it is. If it's a proof of concept of a certain game mechanic or highlighting some kind of art, whatever your purpose is, make sure you focus on it and strive to achieve it. Okay. That will set you up for the right metrics of success. Some other random tidbits. Okay. Making a game, you're probably going to isolate yourself from your family. So what I did was I put my kids into it a lot. I drew the scene together with my daughter, and she was the one art directing a lot of destruction in it. I put my kids' fan art here. I put it straight into the game, and I put their faces in there too. This really helped me, bond with my kids. And if you are going to be isolating your family, I suggest you do something like this as well for them. Okay. From the South Park creators, I learned this idea that don't ever kind of say from scene to scene and then. It has to be but or therefore. Okay. This is the right way to tell a good story. Okay. For example, Gloom wants to get out of his depressing life. Therefore, he wants to get back together with ex-wife. But she's in heaven, and Gloom's been exiled from heaven. Therefore, he has to do shitty jobs for the Archangel Michael to earn his way back. Therefore, Gloom now has to kill Winona, the Doombringer. But the assassins want to keep her alive. Therefore, they send assassins to kill Gloom. But Gloom defeats them, and therefore brings Winona to the end of the road. But he no longer wants to kill her. That's how I structured this one. Minimize assets. Okay, part of the VN culture is a whole concept of like CGs, like uniquely drawn cutscenes for special moments. I knew I didn't have a lot of time to do these, so I planned my trailer first. Okay, and every CG would have to somehow. So in storyboarding the trailer, every CG would have to make it into the trailer, or I would just not do it at all because I didn't have time to do anything that doesn't have a double part to play. I would suggest also recycle. Okay, I recycled a lot of assets in this game. Like I first drew the picture, the background in the top left, and all those buildings, as you can see, made their just basically got cut and pasted all over, and all these other drawings as well. At some point, this caught me off guard, but you're gonna start questioning your friendships. There are gonna be people you don't know who cared, who will step up and show you the support. Okay, but then there are others that you really thought that they'll always be there for you, but honestly, out of 10 people that you asked and they say they'd love to help, only one will put aside a couple of hours to play your game. Some won't even bother to click share on Facebook. Okay, what are you going to do with this realization? I'll leave that up to you. But to me, it's helped me understand where I stand with certain people, and amazed me how supportive others are. Speaking of being supportive, I first went onto Twitter because my publisher told me that's where I got to go to market my game. to me, I don't think I did it wasn't a very good marketing place. But what I found on Twitter were a lot of other game devs and Twitter and Discord, and I got a lot of like and talking to them. It didn't help me pimp my game, but it helped me improve my game. And I think I made a lot of like friendships, and I treasure these. I will say it. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. Write your Steam page first. Okay, figure out what the main pitch of your game is. Okay, wow, that was really fast. Anyway, basically, if you didn't listen to anything I just said in the past like hour or so, understand the purpose for making a game, tell a purposeful story, write the Steam page first to understand what your pitch is. Develop it with a marketing plan in mind, create characters and situations to serve your purpose, make only the assets you really, 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 really need, and recycle what you can. Sweet. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you so much, Drew. I think now is a good time to open the floor up for any questions for Drew. I note that if you don't want to use the voice chat and you have questions, please post them in the room 1 text chat, and if not, feel free to fire away starting now. Anybody at all can jump in if you have anything.
I have a question.
Yes, Carby, please go ahead.
Hi. Okay, so I find it very interesting that you've done writing for TV shows, and then obviously Gloom and Doom. Congrats on the release. Understand that it's your passion project, and I just wanted to. So a little bit about. I think in a lot of like narrative situations. So I work at a mobile game studio, and then what I'm sort of experiencing when I'm asked to help out with narrative parts is that most of the time the game design documents and specifications of what that something is already done, and then for the narrative part, they basically want us to basically write something that makes sense for the scenario that the game designers have already planned out, which is a little bit different from what you've done with Gloom and Doom, obviously, because you're the game designer, so you get to decide all those aspects. But I was wondering if, for instance, if the game you were working on, if for instance you were working on like a visual novel for, I think it's called Teenage Textbook, was the name of the TV show you worked on. Yeah, imagine if you're working on a visual novel of Teenage Textbook instead of the TV show. I was wondering what kind of approach you would take, differently in terms of the narrative portions of the game design, because obviously in that situation you would be tasked to come up with the narrative on spec, as in like on specification, rather than being able to decide what you want to get out of the the narrative part of the game.
I feel like sometimes when you say spec, you're basically you're developing something for someone else, right? Am I correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. A lot of times people don't know what they want. They kind of know something of what they want, and by listening to them and sometimes filling in the blanks for them, you can actually have a meaningful kind of narrative to plug into that. It's just like I mentioned a project that I worked on like earlier, a horror game. Okay, so this guy comes up to me and he's like, okay, I want this to happen, I want that to happen, I want like the main character to be like running away from like this little ghost girl in this creepy house. Okay, so I started asking him stuff like like why is this guy in the house? What's his relationship with the girl? Why doesn't he get out of the house? So and he didn't really have any kind of answers to all those questions at all. So because for him, he's like a matte painter. He's a genius painter, and he made this amazing looking kind of shell of a game. Okay, but like the core stuff and the narrative, he didn't have it down pat. But what you can do is you can take those pieces and fill in the blanks with something a bit more. You just have to like, anticipate what this person's trying to do and what they are able to compromise and negotiate, on, and what they're not. So what they're not, think of it like Lego, where you're not coming from a new box of Lego where everything's just like, in single pieces. Imagine you are opening an old basket of Lego, and there are some bits that are already sort of made into like half piece, half stuff. And so you just have to identify which are the ones that you cannot break and which are the ones that you can, and then sort of from there cobble something together. I'm not sure. It's once you keep talking to this person and can sort of compromise and sort of figure out what that real meaning of the thing is, I think it makes it a lot easier to sort of carve the rest of it out.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a lot of listening. And use examples. Okay, like go watch a shit ton of movies or something, like, and then kind of go, okay, how about if we put this kind of bit into it, and I'll put that scene into it, or maybe let's do it like this, like I like to use sports movies a lot because people understand sports movies intrinsically. So I'll be like, how about like something like this, like an underdog sort of thing, and they'll okay. And once they sort of open up to that, and you can start being a bit more creative and doing the kind of other stuff that you want to say.
So basically, use movie examples like shorthand for things you're trying to raise and convey, right?
Because like they, a lot of times if you're like, if you're doing it from scratch, they may not know what you're trying to say. But if you're using something like like Indiana Jones, they already if they know and love Indiana Jones, and they can sort of like start seeing it a bit more clearly in their heads, that's when you can sort of like help win them over and get them to sort of trust you, to know that you're doing something that's good for them.
I see. Okay, great. Thanks so much for the advice.
Thanks for the question, Carby.
Thank you.
Next question comes from the text channel by Dartian.
Mm-hmm.
Are you intending to work on non-visual novel games in the future?
Yeah, 100%. Okay. Actually, the prototype I made before Gloom Doom was something made in RPG Maker. I actually, Gloom Doom wasn't my first choice to make a game. I actually wanted to make this other one called I'm Not Your Hero, which is like it's like Game of Thrones, but in a high school. Okay, but I realized that was a game that's better made as an RPG, like an old 16-bit sort of RPG, and didn't quite work as a visual novel. That said, because of my purpose for wanting to make something that I can definitely get out within a year, I did not want to tackle an RPG. So I did a visual novel instead, and realized that I'm gonna shelve this game, make Gloom Doom first. In the future, I intend to make this game. And in fact, if you look for Get the Kids to School, that was actually my prototype. It's an RPG Maker game about like trying to get my kids to school in the mornings.
All right, cool. Hope that works for you, Dartian. Anyone in current voice chat wants to take the next question? If not, I will read the next question from text by Johnson S. So Johnson is asking, Drew, how did the writing iteration process go between drafts? Did you have an editor, or like, as you found new people to playtest and provide feedback, how did that continue to affect the writing process, and how much of the writing changed across the year of your writing, or if it was a year or longer, etc.?
Massively. The answer to that is massively. Okay. In August, actually, last year, I actually had a fully working, almost 90% complete version of Gloom Doom. I had some people play test it, and they told me it was incredibly dreary and really too bleak. And this was, again, why I highly suggest to kind of work on your Steam page first. This was before I worked on the Steam page. So I was going on for making this really, 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 really dark game. And it just wasn't really all that fun. And it really turned people off. And once I got that sort of feedback, once I started working on the Steam page, and I realized, oh, I really like this 90s slacker movie thing, this whole concept about it. So once I opened it up and sort of went, okay, it's like a slacker movie, then the characters started, cracking jokes. Then, Winona would smile and she would work in the video store. On top of that, I added the game in terms of words, it increased, it was almost double. I had something like 6 new characters that I had to like create and draw for this new version of the game. And so it got a lot longer, but it wasn't, it got longer, but at the same time, it felt faster paced, and this only can happen if you get, decent feedback from people. What I said before still stands. Out of 10 people you ask for feedback, probably only 1 will give you any. Okay. So once you find someone who cares, okay, and I don't care if it's like, an old friend or another dev that you just met on Twitter. Okay. And I know there's at least one listening to this right now. Okay. Treasure these people. Okay. Work with them and be very two-way about it. Okay. Because this sort of feedback is absolutely gold. Okay. You cannot work in a vacuum. And so, yeah, for me, because of the support and the feedback of these people, I think Gloom and Doom went from a really shitty game to a less shitty game.
Well, thanks for that, Drew. And
I'm sorry, I didn't have an editor. No, I just that one you just sort of like I worked on it myself.
Yeah, that was actually my follow-up question to make sure other than having people that you sort of learned who you could rely on for feedback, did anyone else formally work on the game other than so there's no editor and nobody else basically?
The only thing I didn't do on the game was the music. Everything else, the programming, the drawings, all that kind of stuff, and the editing, yeah, I had to do all that myself.
Gotcha. All right. Next, would love to move on to the next question from the voice chat. If anyone wants to ask something right now.
Oh yeah, definitely my kids too, and the wife.
Anybody want to ask a question? If not, we have one more question from the text chat. So Rouge is asking, very roughly, how many hours do you think you put into Gloom and Doom? And how long do you think it would take if you did it again with the experience you gained? Like, I'm gonna assume this question is asking how long will it take if you made a new VN instead of literally the same VN. Oh, but you can, Drew, I guess you can try answering both versions. Like, if you were to redevelop Doom and Gloom again versus developing a new game or visual novel.
Okay, I'd say, how many hours did I put into it? It was over the course of 11 months. I worked on it, I'd say at least 4 or 6 hours a day. I honestly can't think into like how many man hours I put into Gloom and Doom. I can only quantify it as like 11 pretty intense months.
Your entire life.
Yeah, it feels like an entire life, because when you're a solo dev and when you're sort of like pushing yourself like this, and you place an inordinate and unreasonable amount of pressure on yourself to get this done. Every moment that I wasn't working on the game, I felt like I was disappointing and wasting myself. if I were to even like spend 20 minutes playing StarCraft or something, I felt really bad about it because I should be, because there's so much to do. I could be drawing a background, I could be coloring a character, I could be emailing, and I could be like looking for websites to email, or I could be like going through looking for sound effects or something. There is so much to do, and and you just don't feel like you really give yourself any time to do anything else other than work on the game. My sense of, remember how I said my identity became apparent during the last that year. I sort of changed that to become a game dev, the solo game dev, and I felt like anytime I wasn't doing anything that was being a solo game dev, I was really disappointing myself, and that is a very unhealthy thing to do, honestly, and it's really bad for your mental health. I mean that's one of the reasons why it's such a recurring theme in the game, but I was really messed up last year from an emotional level, and so definitely I recommend that anyone's doing this, please take time out to take breaks, and don't just work on the game 100% of your time. In fact, if every time I did go for like a run or something, I would come back with better ideas that I would not have come up with had I not forced myself to go and take a break and go for a run. And to answer how long would I take to do it again with the experience I've gained now, I think honestly at least half the amount of time. It really just depends. When it comes to a VN, honestly, it mostly comes down to the writing. And once you have a clear sense of what you want to write, that can be really, really fast. Most of the time I spent was struggling with RenPy because I have no coding background at all. Learning how to do stuff in After Effects and in Photoshop. I mean, like towards the end, the new batch of characters, like the new 6 after the big overhaul, I got those done so much quicker than Gloom. Gloom took like a week to draw, and I would be able to like redo him now in like a night, because I was like figuring the stuff out, like processes, how to do the layers, and yeah, I actually wrote this article before where it's like draw your crappy supporting characters first, so that you get all your crappy art out of the way and do all like the when you're figuring out like the workflows that you want to do, so that when you come to your actual really important characters, then they're done right. Because like I did the main characters first, I got their layering all wrong. So when it came to adding new expressions and all that to Winona, and because Winona has the most amount of expressions in the game, it was a real drag. And I would have to like export every single emotion and expression again just to make sure it syncs up with the new one. So if I had to do it again, if I did another one now, and I wanted to before I think it'll be a lot faster. Oh, and Steam, the struggle with Steam is really real, and just like learning how to even upload a build, that took a long time to do. But like now that I know how to do it, yeah, it's really, really, really fast. So I mean, with these game jams with like VNs tend to last about a month. I think that is actually quite feasible to get something like that done in a month. But like, knowing what I want to do, which is like, I tend to write my stories around feature movie length, which is like, the standard 3-act thing. I'd say maybe 3 months. If I had full time working on it again.
And I think that answers the question if you were making a game, like a direct Doom and Gloom sequel, for example, or literally the same game again. Mm-hmm. But what about if you were making a new game? Like, say now you want to work on that Game of Thrones in high school thing that you mentioned earlier. What with the lessons and experience that you now have from Doom and how long do you think that would go?
Honestly, have no idea, because like when it comes to that, it's a whole new workflow. Like I feel like I've gotten the hang of like the VN workflow, which is like roughly how many backgrounds I'm gonna need and how to make sure that I restructure my story to minimize the amount of backgrounds. But when it comes to like, let's say an RPG, for example, I would have to not just draw a background, I have to draw all these tiles and then use those tiles to build a level. And then once I build that level, I'm going to have to play test that level. So there's all these things. It's like it's like a whole new workflow all over again. I feel like, honestly, I should have just like jumped straight into like Unreal or Unity, because it seems like, once I understand that engine, and I feel like those games tend to sell better anyway. It becomes it's a bit more, maybe it's more flexible, because Ren'Py I can only build like VN games. RPG Maker, once if and when I ever master that, or get the hang of that, I can only build RPGs with that.
Well, as a side comment from me, I have never heard a developer who started in like Ren'Py, RPG Maker, or Game Maker say, yes, I moved to Unity and I feel free and like empowered. It's almost always an endless stream of misery from such. Yeah, those game engine. Yes, obviously Unity and Unreal are more powerful, but the amount of work you have to do just to put a simple thing on screen, like that you would just do in a snap in like Ren'Py or RPG Maker, is like night and day. So now coming back to the Q&A, I guess I hope this suffices to answer Ruja's question. Does anyone in the voice chat have another question for Drew?
Yeah, the Kirby again. So I kind of have a question that's related to like the past two questions that were asked. Just curious, because you're a solo game dev, so just curious, like what kind of scheduling or production management process, what kind of style you use for that? In particular, I wanted to find out how do you determine when you feel like you spent enough time on a certain part of the game, even though it's not where you want it to be, but you feel like you need to move on, versus you've already spent a lot of time on aspect, but it still feels half-baked, and you make the decision that, okay, I still need to pour in so much more hours into making this right. Even though, at the point of making that decision, there's no way you could have known if you're going to pour all these hours in and whether or not they will actually be productive hours.
I was talking to a childhood literature hero of mine, Adrian Tan, the original author of the Teenage Textbook. Okay, and I was telling him about my experiences working on like the game and on the TV show based on his book, and how I felt it was just never good enough, and he told me something that really makes a lot of sense. He said, authors never finish books. They just abandon them. And I think that's something that makes a lot of sense. At some point, you just have to abandon this and just move on. Is it good enough? Well, as long as it's not broken, as long as it can get the player from this bit to the next bit without some kind of game crashing bug, or something that turns them off so much that they'll stop playing, it probably is good enough then. I long after the game came out, I was still just making changes and tweaks here and there. I changed all the text boxes like a couple of weeks after the game officially came out. You will never if you don't force yourself to let go, you will never let go. You will just keep going back and just keep making fixes, tweaking little lines here and there, changing adjusting word choices. I feel like to answer your question is really just like, remember what the purpose of each bit is. Okay, as long as it's fulfilled its purpose, it's good enough. It doesn't have to be that every part of the game glows with some angelic radiance.
Great. Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks.
There is a concept, I mean, a really sort of riffing off of what Drew said. There's a general concept, I think, in the writer's world called kill your darlings, basically suggesting that you have to be able to whatever grandiose concept or ideas you have about, whether it's your script, your novel, your game, scenes in a movie, whatever. If you, in order to be able to ship, you have to be able to kill those things and cut them down to size in order to successfully get the thing out the door. So yeah, I mean, this concept is like it or not, it's kind of as old as time. But there are definitely ways to circumvent that. I mean, to make the best out of the situation where you do have to kill your darlings. I mean, your concepts and whatnot. It's probably a bit beyond the scope of today's session, but I would say that what Drew said about feedback is definitely one of those tools you can use to make sure that your product or game is still good enough. All right. Anybody else want to chime in for a question? Okay, if nobody currently has a question, I have a question, Drew.
Pixel Froggy's got one.
Oh, sorry, I missed it. Let's read it out. Yes, so Pixel Froggy says, have you ever thought about collaborating with other people, again, presumably on a game?
100%, yes. One, doing it solo is very isolating. And two, remember, it was one of the slides I sort of sped past, okay, which is I made all these like friends on Twitter, okay, these other game dev friends. I had no game dev. I wouldn't, if I went, and also this is answering Ruger's question. If I went back and did this again, having learned what I learned, I would go onto Twitter and Discord much earlier, okay? And not just to say, hey guys, I made this game, check it out. I would go on and I would be more open and sort of like, and kind of like, share ideas and bounce ideas with them. Because as much as I said, like, some of your friends in real life will kind of like, actually just not understand and not really back you. I think these are people that are in the same boat as you are and do understand and do want to help, So I would totally make use of that. I would go and bounce ideas off someone. I would go and be a sounding board for someone to bounce ideas off me, because this is how, I mean, these are ways we learn, communicating with other people, sharing ideas with other people, even if it's, just the act of coming up with ideas or filtering someone else's ideas, for them is working on your own skills, and it helps you. So would I, at the very least, I would do that. Would I collaborate with others? Yeah, like if someone wanted to do art and all that, I would gladly let go of the art part. I did everything on Gloom Doom solo out of necessity, because I couldn't afford to pay anybody, and and I couldn't, I didn't really want to go and ask favors or anything like that, and I had that bad experience before of like this team of that other game that fell apart, but like given the time and all that, I would definitely want to collaborate with people, because once you find someone that clicks with you, okay, and that's, I guess this is probably the really difficult part. I was listening to this other podcast about like startup life and all that, and it said don't collaborate with someone unless you absolutely have to. and that's true for that, because a lot of times the collaboration or like the active collaboration actually leads to a lot of like miscommunications, and it slows things down. Actually, it's a lot more work. But if you find someone, okay, that honestly understands you and you understand that person and you trust each other inherently to be able to be really open with one another, and you're on the same page, treasure this and work with this person. I have an old high school buddy of mine, and one of the characters is kind of like, based on him, and one of the phrases in the game, like that Winona always says, "Oh my God, that's so cutting." It's because it's named after this friend of mine, and he was instrumental in getting the game. I mean, I didn't work with an editor, but I consider him my definite sounding board. I would talk things over with him, and we'd like play Borderlands. It's sort of play Borderlands. Really, we're just talking about the game, and I'm asking him questions. I would want. And I credit him with like the prologue, actually, because I got him to just write some stupid shit for like the prologue. I would definitely want to work with him on something, if our schedules were to open up like that. Because right now he's writing his own novel, and I was doing this thing, but I don't know. I mean, Brian, what you got anything to add about that?
About working with people and being partners with people.
Okay, not about that part, but not about that part, but because you must have come across like other people who've kind of like have this sort of creative sync.
Yeah, I think so obviously partnerships come in working together with other people come in all sorts of formats. It doesn't have to be like equity partnerships, or finding someone to form a company with you to work on a game. There are co-ops. There are just people who don't even form any formal organizations, but have contracts to bind each other. Sort of hold each other accountable or whatnot. And of course, there are people who just don't have a formal relationship and just work on the thing anyway. But I don't personally recommend that. I do not professionally recommend that either. But the important part is how do you ascertain that someone is has the right kind of working dynamic with you that complements your working style, and they can do their thing, you can do your thing, and together the combination of each other's work makes a stronger, something stronger than the sum of its parts. I think that's something that each individual, whether you're listening to this session or just as a general learning point, it's something that you try working with someone on a small project that doesn't have too much investment into it. Like, I think the really great example is game jams. Whether it's Ludum Dare or 7 DPS or whatever a global game jam, whatever it might be. These are tend to be much smaller scope things, and of course you can work on a game jam yourself. But I think it's the perfect sort of venue to experiment, go and meet people that you might be part of a community you've encountered, or like Drew, you just sort of you go onto Twitter or other game communities and sort of cast your net out there and see what people are like. Of course, the higher order problem beyond that game jam, once you find someone who you really click with from a work point of view, you will have to ascertain whether you trust them. But that's a longer term thing, and there's no surefire way to ensure that is someone completely trustworthy. But I think that's a risk everyone takes over time. And just like what we said earlier about killing your darlings, there's a point where you say, I think I've seen enough that I believe I can trust this person, and you kind of go from there. Did I sort of address the relevant point, Drew?
I think so, yeah. it's. I mean, I think I come into this from a more naive, perspective, because I think I like I'm just naive by nature, but like
Don't say that. You're not. You've been around the block, dude.
No, but I like to think that everyone's got good ideals and and want the best for like the greater good. That said, I get burned all the time, and probably because I didn't follow the kind of advice that you just said. So yeah, definitely protect yourselves and all that, but don't let it stop you from asking, though.
I agree with that. If there's a point where you kind of, it's a leap of faith. If you have enough information, like you can't collect information forever and be like tentatively think, I can't trust this person yet. I'll just keep doing game jams until like we, I have like 10 years of evidence that this guy hasn't screwed me over. That's not how it works. There's a point where a person has to take a leap of faith, and if you want to collaborate with someone, you take the plunge.
And there are levels. There are like people you click with enough to like have a beer with. There are people you click with enough that, okay, let's do this kind of like side project with, and then I guess then there are people that you trust so inherently that you put a ring on it.
Different sort of partnership.
No, but there are levels, right? Just because I will marry I married my wife, but but that doesn't mean I don't trust other people. Just not to the point where I don't. It's just not to the point where I want to marry them.
Hey, sorry to butt in, but Drew, thanks so much for sharing. I really want to continue this conversation, but I just need to stop the video recording right now. So,
okay.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. If you want to stay in this chat and linger and just talk shop, then feel free to. I'm going to stop the recording now.